Hey guys, welcome back. Jesus loves you. So, do you ever feel like you've been prepared for this moment your entire life? That your entire life has been geared towards this moment right now, getting ready for the rapture, the coming of Jesus Christ? Haven't you given up a lot of worldly things and made a lot of anti-worldly choices your whole life? Haven't you felt like you never belonged here? And doesn't it all make sense that Jesus is going to come and take us out of here soon? Right? Looking back at our lives, if the rapture isn't true and all that, a lot of our lives don't make sense. Why would you make that decision? Why would you do that? Why wouldn't you take this job? Why wouldn't you take that career? Right? Why would you choose, et cetera, right? All these different things. But doesn't it make sense knowing that Jesus Christ is coming soon and this world is about to pass away the way it is? Going into the Great Tribulation, where people won't even be able to work normally anyway. All the careers that people are so concerned about, right? This world tells us that's like the most important thing in the world. One of them, right? As well as like love and what they call love, right? During the Great Tribulation, nobody's going to be able to do anything. And guess what, guys? We already saw that in 2020, right? We saw the world shut down and people lose businesses and everything they worked for in a matter of a month, few months. And the Great Tribulation is going to be a million times worse than that. That 2020 is nothing, but it was a picture. God gave us, he was graceful enough to give us a picture of what the tribulation potentially would be like. We weren't allowed to buy or sell unless you had a mask, right? That was all. And then eventually with you couldn't buy or sell, you couldn't go to work. I mean, guys, what was that but a picture of the tribulation? So, I don't know. Do you guys ever feel like that? That you've been prepared your whole life for this moment right now? To be a watchman on the wall, warning people, telling people, bringing people to Christ, letting them know like he's coming soon? That's what I feel. I feel like my whole life was leading up to this moment. Another point I wanted to bring up is the non-watchmen, right? The people who say they call us date setters. By the way, JD Farag just made a video about September 23rd. Really good, interesting video. I only listened to a quarter and then I had to make this video because I was inspired. But he's looking at it from a biblical perspective. And he's not saying I'm jumping, he's saying I'm not jumping on the September 23rd train necessarily, but I'm going to give you guys the reasons why the watchers and the watchman community of Christians are looking at September 23rd. And then he goes through and talks about the feasts and how they were fulfilled in Christ. The spring were, but the fall have not. So all the things that like your average church member doesn't know about that we do, hence why we're excited about September 23rd and 24th. The average church person doesn't know. And when you start to give them these facts, they start to listen and learn. And then they're like, oh, right? If they're a little humble, they're like, there is something to this. So JD Farag just made that video really awesome. And he mentioned in there that we're being called date setters. And he says that's a misnomer, and the whole you can't know the day or the hour thing. He says that's a misnomer, right? First of all, we're not date setters because God set the date, right? Jesus is coming is a date that God has set. We're not setting the date. We're guessing. Right? We're asking the question. We're looking like it could be this day. Oh, it could be that day. And of course, we're looking at the feast days. So these people who call us date setters, the non-watchers, let's say, right? The people who don't, a lot of them believe in post-trib and all that, and that we have to go through tribulation, whatever. I see them in the comments. I see their response videos. And as you guys know, I'm sure, they're of the wrong spirit. Just straight up. All their comments are negative, criticizing other brothers, right? I just got hit with a comment. I put a playlist for the Rapture 2025 on somebody's video. I think it might have been an anti-September video. And I put the playlist with all these videos that I've been collecting of all these people, different channels from all around, all different theologies but they're all talking about the same date, 23rd and 24th. And somebody put in the comments, it's not going to happen. right? Of course they know. We can't know, but they can know, right? Talk about arrogance and like hypocrisy. And talk about date setting. They're date setting by saying that it can't happen this day. Apparently you know the date because it's not happening it can't happen on 23rd or 24th. But no man knows the day or the hour. Well, then how do you know? Right? You don't know. Neither do we. Nobody's saying we know for sure. Okay, Brother Joshua was saying that because he says that Jesus came to him and told him that. But most of the other people, we don't know for sure. We think that it is very possible. So they said in the comments, it's not going to happen no matter how many people you con into watching your videos or these videos. And I'm like, wow, they're attributing this negative motive to what I'm doing, that I'm conning people into watching video. Like, what are you even talking? And these are Christians, right? So a Christian is assigning this bad motive to another Christian who's simply talking about the coming of Christ, and we're simply talking about the gospel. Why are we getting labeled all these negative things? Because they're of the wrong spirit. They're not watching. They don't want the coming of the Lord. They're going to miss out on the crown, apparently. I think it seems that way. They might miss out on the crown of those who are joyful and watching for his coming. That's a crown that we get according to the Bible. They don't want it. They don't want him to come. And a lot of it comes from they believe in post-trib, so they're so stuck on that they say there is no rapture, even though it clearly says that we're brought up into the air. So when people say there's only the second coming, my question is, okay, so what does Paul mean that we're brought up into the air and there we will be with him forever? Are we brought up and then brought down again? There's so many inconsistencies in their positions. But that's what I see, and I'm sure you guys noticed it too. They are of the wrong spirit. They're so critical. I just watched this one guy. I'm subscribed to his channel. I forget his name, but he basically just rails against the Watchman channels. And he just did a video about Men for Christ, and Brother Joshua and Global Rapture Watchers did a live stream with Men for Christ, Chris, and I believe his wife, and then one other lady who I didn't know. And this guy is just railing on these people, and the whole video, I was going to comment and say, dude, literally everything you said was wrong. Just on a right and wrong basis, everything you said there was no truth in it, and it was just critical. Like he's saying, I guarantee you that September 23rd will happen and there will be no rapture. How can you say that? Right? Well, because they believe that the Antichrist has to come first, and that we're going to see the Great Tribulation, and we're going to see the abomination of desolation. Well, apparently, when we see the abomination of desolation, we will have to flee from Jerusalem, right? Because that's what Jesus says. And we'll have to pray that our flight is not in Sabbath. Does that sound like it's to Christians? Jerusalem, people living in Jerusalem, and Sabbath? That's not Christians. It's talking to the Jews. But they don't understand dispensationalism. They literally don't understand it. So these people are of the wrong spirit. Criticism, doubt, not looking for the coming of the Lord. Are they loving the world? It's possible. I can't say for sure. I don't know their hearts. I don't know their lives or whatever. And look, we all love the world to some degree. This is a falsity of the church. Are you living for the world or are you living for Christ? That's not in the Bible. That's a false dichotomy. Every single one of us is living for both the world and for Christ to varying degrees. And we will see that played out in heaven with the reward system, right? It's like in preschool. You get stars when you're good, and you get red dots when you're bad, or whatever the system is. They have a rewards and punishment system. In heaven, from what I understand, there is no punishment system. There's just rewards. So if you didn't do good stuff for Christ, and if you lived like a very quote-unquote worldly life, you're not going to get many rewards, and also you're not going to get a high position in heaven. Jesus clearly says that, right? Those who do the will of God and teach others to do the will of God, they will be called greatest in the kingdom of heaven, right? That's rewards, that's position, status, responsibilities. But he says those who don't do the will of God, which means living worldly, and teach others to not do the will of God, that means they're encouraging others to sin. That's the way I see that verse. They will not make it to heaven because they weren't good enough, or they weren't truly saved, or they weren't born again. No, they will be called least. Where? In the kingdom of heaven. These wretched sinners who believe on the blood of Christ and rely on Christ's sacrifice will go to heaven, but they will have a lower status. They will have not that many responsibilities. Doesn't it make sense that there will be a reward and responsibility system and hierarchy, rather? I don't like to use that word, but basically that not everybody's going to be on the same level. There's going to be different things going on for different people. Well, God created us all individual anyway, right? He created us with all our talents. Some of us can sing, some of us are musicians, some of us are leaders, some of us are architects, right? Writers, doctors, people with the gift of hospitality and helping and all these different things. He gave us those things to use on earth. Well, don't you think that we're going to be using them in heaven? I believe we will. Right? I believe we're going to be doing what we love. And what we love is what God made us to do. And vice versa. What God made us to do, if we get to do those things, we'll be genuinely happy. Sometimes our flesh and our own will gets involved, and we think, well, I want to do this, or I don't want to do that thing that God wants me to do. But in actuality, guys, and I hope you've experienced this, I have also in my life, not all the time, but I've had periods where I've been very obedient and doing the will of God. And when you do the will of God, you feel happy. More accurately, you feel serene, you feel serenity, you feel peace. Some of you guys might not like this, but I'm just thinking of it. The word Islam. The word Islam means peace, just like shalom means peace. But specifically, the word Islam means the peace that you feel and the serenity you feel when you do the will of God, when you surrender to God. And I've experienced that in my life. And I experienced that in my life today. There are places and times and certain situations in my life that I am able to surrender to God. There are other areas where I struggle surrendering it to God, and I take my will back. This is a constant battle that we all deal with. Sometimes when we surrender to God, it doesn't always feel good. Often it actually won't feel good. But in the long run, we will feel a sense of peace and serenity. That's why the word happy is not the best word to use there, because happy can be fleeting. Everybody's looking for happiness. But God provides, yes, happiness, but more deeply than that, serenity. And serenity is a form of happiness that is not fleeting. It's not just a feeling, it's sort of a permeating peace, right? How would you say it? Just a okayness, right? I'm okay. And guys, I got that as soon as I put my faith in Christ and got saved. Once that happened, that was the main thing that changed for me. Other than my thoughts about religion and God, and I left my religion immediately, stopped bowing to idols, stopped doing all their practices, and I started believing that Jesus died for me. But other than that, the main thing that changed for me, and this is what I tell people when they ask, how has your life changed? Now, I could point to, well, within the first year of being saved, I started to get a master's degree, which I had been putting off for decades and wasn't able to do when I was in my religion. When I got saved, immediately things started changing, physically in the physical realm. Things started getting better. Of course, some things didn't get better. But the main thing that changed for me, guys, is this overwhelming, and everlasting sense of peace. No matter what happens, I feel okay. Because I know, and I know it in my spirit, not just my mind, but in my heart and in my being, that I'm going to be okay no matter what. Even if the worst thing in the world happens in this life, the worst scenario you could possibly think of, right? I'm not going to list it because I don't want to put it out there. We all can think of, right? Then there's generally an idea of the worst things that can happen to people, right? Before death, but then including death. All of that pales in comparison to what we are going to get when we get to heaven, and it makes it all okay. So no matter what happens, we're going to be okay. That's it, guys. So I'm going to continue watching. I don't know about you. That's my plan. I feel like I said I've been prepared for this moment. I feel like I'm an end times Christian. God has prepared me as an end times Christian. And we're at the tail end. And it's funny because as much as I feel that and know that, I still get this doubting thing like, what is this whole watching thing, you know? Because a lot of stuff, dates have come and gone, right? And I've been in the Watchmen community for maybe a year. And I got really enthusiastic about it right away. But a lot of dates have come and gone. A lot of things that they're saying don't happen. And my mind says, what is this stuff? Right? And to be honest with you guys, if September 23rd and 24th passes this year, you know, I'm not going to predict what I'm going to do. But as of right now, I'm feeling like it's going to put a huge dent in what we thought we knew. And there are people, like I've said before, they're going to be shutting down their channels. Watchers who are shutting down their channels if they're wrong. I'm not going to do that. But it's going to make me question, right? The 77 years of Israel, 80 years is a generation. Well, if it doesn't happen this year, what was all that nonsense? Now, I believe we can push it out potentially to one more year. But even that's a little tricky. Outside of 2026, if it doesn't happen, then we really don't know what we're talking about. Okay? And then all the naysayers may be right. But the thing is, the naysayers never have any basis because they'll never attack the substance. They'll just attack us. They'll call us fanatics, date setters, etc. But they don't talk about like Israel being a nation for 77 years and Jacob and his two wives, how he married the first one. And then 7 years later, he married the second one. So first he marries the one that he didn't choose, which was the Gentile nations, right? And he was 77, the same year that Israel is right now, is the time when Jacob married his first wife. I can't remember if it was Leah or, I think it was Leah. Then, so that represents God or Jesus coming for his church. But that includes the Gentiles. 7 years later, Jacob gets to marry the woman that he really wanted and really loved, Rebecca. That represents Christ coming 7 years later, 7 years after Israel is 77, which Jacob was. Jacob was later named Israel, for his original bride, his original choice, right? His original plan, which was the nation of Israel, the Jews. And actually the Israelites, not just the Jews. The entire Israelite 12 nations, 12 tribes. This is all stuff that when they rail against us, they will never address these things because 9 times out of 10, they don't know them because they haven't even looked into it. And if they've started to, they can't understand it. And they don't want to take the time and humble themselves and think like, hey, maybe there's something to this. There's a lot of pride and ego and, and bitterness there and doubt and all that stuff. So, and they won't address the 6,000 year prophecy, right? And they won't address the 2055 day prophecy. They won't talk about Daniel. They won't talk about the 70th week of Daniel. They won't talk about, wow, there's all these, oh my gosh, there's like 4 falcons flying together right above my car. Really interesting. Wow, now there's like 6. By the way, guys, last night I saw a deer on the side of the road. I was at like a restaurant and it was kind of on the side of a main road. This big deer was just eating and staring at me. I've never been that close to a deer, and it didn't run. Obviously, it wasn't that skittish because it was right by the cars, and I didn't want to scare it so it would run towards the cars. And I was just chilling, looking at them, and I filmed it. It was really cool. So, yeah, if these 2 years pass, then we don't know what we're talking about with all this stuff. And we're going to have to rethink all this, right? But I really believe that we are in the end times, whether it's September 23rd, 24th, this year, next year. I'll tell you what, if it doesn't happen in 10 years, then I'll really get off the rapture train, And to be honest, if it doesn't happen in 2 years, I'd probably be off the rapture watching train to some degree. Not saying I won't still watch. I probably would. I probably would watch every feast day. But, sort of the focusing on Israel, focusing on politics, I would drop all that. That's what I'm feeling in my spirit that I would probably do. because I would just be too let down, and there would be too many questions. I would need more confirmation, you know. As of now, I'm getting the confirmation. I'm seeing all the videos, all your guys' videos, all your guys' comments about this date and how you're getting confirmations from God. I've been getting lots of confirmations, okay? And I'm going to make a video about that. I asked God, can you show me if the rapture's going to be on the 23rd or 24th? You know, is this a possibility? If it's your will, can you give me a sign? And it's interesting, guys, because I don't necessarily usually like to do that, but he's been giving me signs. So I'm going to make a video about that. And I'm trying to compile them all together and hit them off. So keep watching, guys. Girls, you know, guys and girls, men and women, non-binary, everybody, you know. We just keep watching. We keep doing what we do for Christ. Do what you do for him. He loves you. He's ready. I believe he's coming soon. And we're going to see him soon. So let's keep doing this, all right? Keep coming back, guys. I love you so much. Peace, love, and blessings. Shalom.